Perfect Genetics Challenge, Generation 1, Episode 23. Welcome. This is Carrots. This episode is devoted to the entire family, but the main focus will be the eldest son, Gary, to age up to a teen. I opened the game to find the ghost floating around in Don's garden, and I was shocked to see that this ghost, who obviously had the neat trait, one of the more annoying traits when I have toddlers, because they pick up things that I want out for the toddlers to work with. Started picking up toys and putting them in the toy box. That's little Percy in the playpen. He needs to be taken out of that because a single toddler in a playpen isn't a good idea for very long. His needs will be dropping rapidly, although he might need to go back in there for a while to learn a few of the skills that come with being in a playpen, but I might even forgo them since he's the last toddler in this generation. That is Gary playing on the slippery slide out in the children's playground. He's completed all of his childhood skills, and he's learnt a few skills that he can continue to work on when he's a teen. But while I was chasing that ghost around the garden, I discovered there are a few things that need to be done in the garden that require a sim with a green thumb and a high gardening skill. And although Don's gardening skill is improving, he doesn't have a green thumb. So I thought, when Gary ages up to a teen, I'll make sure he gets a green thumb. Gary's completed all of the things that I've decided that my children need to do before they age up. He's done his childhood skills, and he's been at A-grade at school for quite a while now. However, there are still obstacles to aging him up immediately. Gary's parents, Don and Olivia Walker, are in the culinary career, and they work at Sam's Market Diner, which comes with Moonlit Falls, which is where they live. On this particular day, Don has come straight home from work because, well, he doesn't mind having a house full of children. But Olivia, she just likes children, and she had a wish to improve her handiness skill. So instead of going straight home from work, she stopped off at the local library to read up on her handiness skill. And while she was at the library, she bumped into a tourist, Percy Amin, from Egypt. Now, Olivia didn't actually physically bump into Percy. They just happened to both be at the library at the same time. They each looked for a book and went their separate ways. It turns out Percy was too tired to read anything, and the book Olivia needed was in a different bookshelf. I noticed 3 dark spots on the carpet. They were food that had been dropped, and those squares were now reserved by that food. Back at home, the children have developed a habit of watching the TV from the kitchen table. They sit there to eat and they watch TV at the same time. Little Petal, the plant sim child, is standing watching TV, while the 2 seated children are our heir, Cindy, and her brother, James. They're enjoying the show by the look of it. I think Petal needs a new outfit. Don went off with some harvestables in his pocket to consign them at the Humble Harvest stand that's in the foyer of Carter's Corner store. The store is something I built, and it is available in my studio on the Sims 3 site if you're interested in getting it. The Humble Harvest stands are a store item that came with the alfresco market. After he had consigned his produce, he went into the little garden shop. It's just full of decor items, mainly plants that they could put around the house. It's also got a consignment register and a savvy seller register in it. He needed to consign some produce because they're almost completely out of money, and he should get a good payment from the Humble Harvest stand. That's the consignment register, the brown one on the right, and on the left you can hardly see is the savvy seller register. It's a yellow and grey colour. You just see it there now. I think there's 7 different little shops in this one building, and this garden shop is just one of them. It's Wednesday afternoon and the children are coming out of school. I have told Gary, that was him just walking towards us, that he's got to go and collect some metals, but he's going to do his homework first. That's James walking towards the bus to go home, and Petal's already got on it. She had the flower trail. Cindy has gone in the other bus. She went home to somebody else's house for a little play date. This school is a combination school and stadium. I think the bus is waiting for Gary. He's supposed to be going home on it. I have to go and see what he's doing. There he is, sitting out the back at a picnic table doing some of his homework. He needs to collect some iron. I think once he gets home, he will run off to find a piece of iron that I've located for him. I'm just amazed that the bus just sat there and waited for him. There are 2 bits of iron at Le Chauve Beach, and this is where he is now. That's the waterfall in the distance. It's getting quite late. It's starting to get a bit dark, but I'll keep him out because I want him to get that iron. He needs a bit of silver as well, and I've looked for a few days now, a few sim days, and silver hasn't shown up. I don't want to get him to miss this opportunity. I do want him to complete it before he ages up to a teen, but I don't want him to be looking for his bit of silver for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I'm going to have to come up with another plan, I think. I think that's his bit of iron coming into view right now. So he's got his iron. There's one other piece that he can collect before he goes home. Now, little Cindy, she was at a friend's place, and I've had to tell her to go home before curfew. It was getting rather late. She looks like she's wearing a helmet, but it's actually her hairstyle and the colours of her hair, how they appear. And of course, she's the heir, and to be the heir, she had to have that particular exact hair and purple eyes, just like her mother's got. And when she has her own babies, which is what she has to do as the heir, she will need to keep having them until she gets one that's got the exact same hair and eyes as she's got. That's the point of the challenge. Perfect genetics. Meanwhile, Don's at home working on his cooking skill, which he needs to do to advance in his work, which he needs to do to get his lifetime wish of celebrated 5-star chef. And I want the fridge that he will get when he gets to the top of that career. And the additional benefit, of course, is he's feeding his family, filling the fridge with food so they can all eat. Now, Don is aware of the issue that Gary has, that he needs to find a piece of silver. And the other issue is, of course, they're short of money. So Don's decided that there's only one thing he can do. He has to go off to China. He'll go by himself, and while he's there, he's not going to do any adventures. He's just going to look for valuables, especially a piece of silver. But anything that he can sell will be good as well. Here's Don in China. He's running towards the abandoned barn. He knows that there's some treasure in the treasure chests there. There's a few things he's got to achieve on this trip to China. He has to find a piece of silver for Gary. He also needs to find a few common relics, because Gary has another opportunity that he needs to fulfill, which requires him to deliver a common relic to a local business. And Don needs the recipe for stir-fry, because he's got an opportunity as well from work, and that's why he chose China as the place to go to for this little excursion to help the family achieve its goals. Money's tight, of course, and he had to use all of the money that he got from consigning his harvestables at Carter's Corner store to pay for his airfares to get to China, and now he doesn't have enough simoleons to go and buy his recipes, so he's got to go and find a few things before he can get the recipes. He's only here for 3 days. He needs to improve his gardening skills. There were no seeds at the abandoned barn, and he usually picks up seeds there. We'll just spend a few minutes seeing a few of the highlights of what Don got up to. He did quite a lot of excavating. He did some gardening. He did some fishing and cooking, which improved his cooking skill. He slept at the base camp and ate at the base camp. There was some grilled cheese sandwiches that he made there, and I think that's just a plate of cereal he had for breakfast. He saw some interesting sights as well. You never know what you're going to find when you go overseas. Caught several creatures that he sold immediately. He kept his butterflies because there's a possibility somebody's going to get into making elixirs back at home shortly, and some of these butterflies are needed for that. And he picked wildflowers and sold them wherever he found them. And he found a falcon, which he caught and sold. I think he got about 900 simoleons for that one. Had a quick look inside one of the tombs under the marketplace. He didn't do any exploring. Then he had enough simoleons to go and buy his recipes. And it's almost time for him to go back home. So it took him a while to get enough simoleons to go shopping for recipes. He bought the fishing books as well while he was there, and the martial arts book. He doesn't have the martial arts equipment or anything from the general store, but he can get that back home. And then when his trip was almost over, he went fishing back at Hans' orchard. And it was then time to return to Moonlit Falls. Back at home, I was struggling to get the boys to do their homework. They kept doing their homework, and then I'd look at that and discover they'd only done a tiny bit. Owen decided he was going to go and sit at the desk in Petal's room. After this experience, I made sure all the children's bedroom doors were locked, so that not everybody could get into all of the bedrooms. Don settled down to read his recipe of stir-fry, and he read the egg roll recipe too while he was at it. I think those pictures on the wall behind him, I found them in an archive somewhere. It was about this point when pandemonium broke out amongst the imaginary friends. I got a message that Cosmo wanted to come out and play. Gary's imaginary friend was Cosmo, so I thought, oh, this is fun. Now, the children were at a school excursion at the mausoleum at the time I got the message, and until I got home, I had realised that I'd grabbed the wrong Cosmo. Owen has a Cosmo as well, and his Cosmo was the one that wanted to get out and play. And there was Gary's yellow Cosmo sitting in the yard waiting for Gary to return home. When I saw another message, Cosmo wants to get out to play. And then I realised that the Cosmo that wants to get out and play was white, and the one I'd grabbed was yellow. So then I looked through the inventories of all of the children, and I pulled out all of the imaginary friends and dumped them on the grass in the play area near where I had put the original yellow Cosmo. James was off looking for butterflies after he finished with the mausoleum, and Gary had already delivered his metals and gems to school that day, and after they finished at the mausoleum, Gary went off to deliver his common relic to the local business. Everybody ran to catch the bus home after they finished at the mausoleum. That's James with the blue shirt on. Looks like Gary running as the last one to get on the bus. And we saw Petal with her flower trail. She was the first, I think. And then there's Owen. He must be there somewhere as well. Now, I think Petal has gone off to visit a friend after school. She's doing her homework at a friend's place. Finally, Gary gets up onto the bus, and then Petal remembers that she should have already gone to her friend's place, so she jumps off the bus and onto her bike. Gary delivers the common relic that Don found in China, and how he's completed both of his opportunities. I noticed the Sims were getting fleas, so I bought a pet hygienator for the two pets so they could get rid of their fleas themselves. And the others, well, they'd all have to take a shower, and provided the pets stay hygienated, they should not get fleas again, I hope. The imaginary friends sit patiently on the grass, awaiting the return of their owners. I wonder what's going to happen when they come back. It looks like only two of them are getting animated. I think that green one in the middle belongs to James. The two that stood up, the one on the right belongs to Gary, and on the left it belongs to Owen. And Don and Olivia are having a quiet moment behind the garden. A little bit of flirting goes on occasionally when they get the opportunity. They'll probably have to go to work soon. Got to have Gary's birthday at some point as well. There's a dog. Owen came home, and his Cosmo suddenly got big and went to greet him. The introduction of Owen and Patches. So who was the other Cosmo? I know there was two Cosmos. The children are there doing their homework. It's the yellow Cosmo standing there. I think I've only taken out the dolls for the three older boys. Petal's come home. Not sure where Cindy is. Owen's getting that scavenger hunt, precious metals. Gary's doing his homework outside the hospital after he delivered his common relic. And his Cosmo, the yellow one, is standing up now. And James is playing with his own little doll. So I've noticed these imaginary friends do that. They teleport automatically. You can't control them because they're not made real yet. So Gary's home and his Cosmos teleported into the same room. Gary's having a discussion with his mother, just as typically friendly as all of his discussions with his mother have been. Wonder if the relationship will improve when he's no longer a child, because she dislikes children. She seems to get pretty ferocious with all of the little boys. We'll see what happens when Gary's a teen. There's little Percy having his bottle. He's been reading his books. He's read quite a few of his books. He's done most of his toddler skills. The only toddler skills he hasn't done are the ones you get in the playpen or the walker. And I may not get him to do them. As long as he's read all of his 9 books, I'll age him up to child. That might happen in the next episode. James has still got to do some of his childhood skills, so he isn't ready to age up to teen yet. I'm wondering if he can make friends with his doll and get it to become alive as well. I was thinking about what to do about Cindy's future husband. I might make him a child and add him to the household, probably in the next episode. so they can get to know each other, because I don't want another thing like it was at the beginning of Generation 1, where it took about a dozen episodes before I got Olivia and Don to even talk to each other and get married. That was just too difficult, so I couldn't control Don. Now that is Petal's imaginary friend on the floor. Finally got that on video. Missed the other two. So Petal and her imaginary friend are going to be buddies. Maybe it's Petal's imaginary friend that's now the Cosmo. Looks like it is. Here is Petal going to bed with her imaginary friend standing up there. He's going to have to wait on the floor till morning when she wakes up. I've had fun with the imaginary friends in other games, so we'll see how this one goes. I checked their traits, and so far none of them are evil, which is good. I've only ever had one evil imaginary friend. I've seen people writing that all imaginary friends are evil, but I've only had one that was evil. That's the little collection of gnomes. That's the ghost gnome there. That's why we've got so many ghosts haunting the lot. There's one of the ghosts. There's a pink one. We don't see her often. I usually see the man that died from fire. He's opened up this episode, didn't he? Collecting all the toddler toys and putting them in the toy box. There's little Percy walking to do the potty. He's still reading his books. Don's got to put him to bed. Little Percy's not having quite the same toddler experience as all the rest of the family. Doesn't have any little toddler siblings to play with. The children are all too busy with their schoolwork and imaginary friends to play with Percy. So everybody's going to sleep. I think that picture on the wall is by Sim Picasso. If you are interested in finding it, Google Sim Picasso and you will surely find their work. So Don had an opportunity. He went to China and bought the recipe, and he came home and he cooked it, and then he took it to work and he got his points and his money, I suppose, as well. Time for the children to come home from school. We'll soon have time to actually have a birthday for Gary. It was his last day at school as a child, and Gary stopped off on the way home to visit a school friend. Gary went inside the house, but he didn't stay there for long, and he quickly emerged and walked around the side of the house and climbed on playground tower. It wasn't a tree house, but it was much the same sort of thing. Since Gary had a tree house at home, he didn't find what his friend had in his backyard all that interesting or appealing. So after spending only a very short time on his own in this very plain object, Gary decided he'd just go home, and that's what he did. Meanwhile, Petal had stopped off at the Goodfellow household and was doing her homework with Fawn. Back at home, Sophie Rogers, a little fairy, had come home from school with Cindy, and they had done their homework already, and Cindy had gone off to play and left Sophie to her own devices. Sophie was having quite a lot of fun in the children's playground. Sophie eventually found a piece of old, not quite gone off yet, but almost stale birthday cake in the fridge outside and sat down to eat that because she was starving. And in the nursery, little Percy continued working his way through his skill books between using the potty, having bottles and sleeping. James had a scavenger hunt, butterfly bonanza opportunity to complete. So he raced off. There were several butterflies around town that were ready and waiting to be caught, and a moth. The moths are often hard to find. And he decided he'd pick some wildflowers while he was at it. So there's his red admiral butterfly caught. She's got 3 more to get. Back at home, everybody was there except for James, who was still out chasing his butterflies and moths. But I thought I'd better get it done now, or somebody will have to go off somewhere and we'll have nobody at home. So here it is. Gary's having his birthday. James can have some cake when he gets home. Sophie's still there. She'll help him celebrate. And his imaginary friend I can see coming along in the background as well. Mother of Olivia is in her athletic outfit. There's a ghost. Lots of cheering. Let's hope this view is going to give us a good view of the birthday boy. The rest of the family here can't see out behind. He had his wish, blew out his candles, now he's going to age up. There he goes. Gary is no longer a child, he's now a teen. And of course we get to choose his trait. And what trait did I say we need him to have? He needs to be green thumb to help Don in the garden. And since his lifetime wish is Master Magician, I think I'll leave that hair on him. But I might do things with his clothes later on. I haven't taken him to create a sim yet. And look, his imaginary friend aged up as well. And he didn't even need a cake. Put that extra cake in the fridge. And while everybody parties, the university mascot shows up to leave some university goodies for Gary. So Gary's aged up to teen, and that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please consider giving it a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, think about subscribing. And if you do subscribe, click the bell icon so you get notifications when I load a new video. I load at least one each week. So that's bye-bye for now, and happy simming.